Good evening, Facebook and YouTube and podcast listeners. Welcome to the Common Grounds podcast. I'm your host, Chris Greenfield from Roastery Marketplace. And tonight we are going to be interviewing my friend, Jen Stone. Jen is a phenomenal small batch coffee roaster. And I'm not just saying that because she's been supplying me with coffee for the last 2 weeks. I've had some amazing Kenyan, and she sent me I've never had Ethiopian whoosh whoosh before, and she sent me a bag. In fact, I bought a bag, and she was nice enough to send me a complimentary bag of coffee. And man, I tell you what, it is phenomenal, the flavors I'm getting out of that. But we'll talk about coffee and the amazing story that Jen has, and she's been in coffee for a few years, I believe. She's been around the world doing different stuff with specialty coffee, and she's just really cool person to talk to. So if you're tuning in down the road, or if it's your first time listening, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, subscribe to our podcast, and give us a rating. We're going to be dealing with hurricanes, dogs, and small children tonight. So if any of those three things happens, we apologize, but such is the price we pay for going live and streaming. Thanks for joining us, and here we go. Good evening, Jen. How are you tonight?
Hey, I'm great. Thank you.
So I was telling the viewers a little bit. You've had some weather where you're at, dealing with the hurricane that's came through. Even though you're in the interior, you're still dealing
Yeah.
with the hurricane.
Yeah. Sort of like swooshed, up through, headed over towards the other coast. But we blew through and it was like 76 this afternoon. It's supposed to be 50 tomorrow. So,
Yeah,
yeah, welcome
we're
to
welcome to.
November, October. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We're this is I'm in Texas, so it's actually upper 50s outside right now, which is typically our Christmas weather.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and
Yeah.
my 3-year-old doesn't know how to act. She's like, "It's so cold. It's cold, Dad." I was like, "No, it's not that bad actually.
Bring
You're
out the
just a
sweaters.
Texan." So,
Nice.
Jen,
Yes.
we talked a couple months ago for the first time, and I don't remember how we ran into each other virtually, but you interviewed me for a little bit on a piece you were working on, and then I started talking to you, and I think I didn't even know at the beginning of the conversation that you roasted coffee, and then we started talking more and more about it, and so what I want you to do is introduce yourself to my listeners, my audience out there, and tell everybody how you first got involved in specialty coffee.
Okay. Well, hello. Yes. Cheers. This is good timing. So I have been roasting coffee for many years. I actually decided when I was in college that I wanted to be in coffee. I was exposed to cafe society, for lack of a better word. I was traveling to Spain and Mexico. I got my degree in Spanish, which was just incredibly useful. And but it was while I was traveling that I sort of had like these cups of coffee in these, European style cafes, and just the conversation, the background noise, the music, everything just amalgamated into this like moment of like, I got to do this. I've got to make this happen for me, and I've got to share it with as many people as I possibly can. And so I bought this notebook and I put all my ideas in it, and I borrowed in 1997. I borrowed $13,500. I got a loan, and I bought an espresso machine, a coffee maker, a neon sign. I built a counter and like hung my shingle in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And that's sort of how it began. And I knew that all along that I wanted to roast coffee. Think of this: back in those days, there was Kenneth David's book, The Guide to Brewing and Enjoying Coffee, and Home Coffee Roasting. So he had, and he also had a book about espresso. So that was it. I wasn't like Googling like how to roast coffee, how to brew coffee, like how to
You,
steam milk.
well,
Uh,
you didn't have Google.
yeah.
Yeah, no, no, we
My
didn't have
Google.
Google.
Yeah.
Pre-Googled years.
Yeah, yeah. So it was just a very sincere effort at the time to just keep going. And I just had a great customer base and great locations over time, and decided I wanted to wholesale coffee, grow the cafe business. But I really loved working with other people too about their coffee programs, and I ended up getting a Got Hot roaster. And so, to your audience, the Got Hot is the best roaster. It's a vintage German roaster. It started built in the late 1800s. They started building them in the late 1800s, early 1900s by a grocer named Ferdinand Gotthot. That's Gothot. And he just, German design, very overbuilt, um, tons of airflow and gas control, and just solid cast iron pre-World War II materials. They're a beast. I had a 23 kilo, and I just loved it. But it just gave me control over developing the roast of the coffee in a way that I've found working with other roasters maybe doesn't. Especially some of the entry level, which is fine. My first roaster was like an Ambex, and I didn't have a ton of control at all. I got to put the beans in and turn them brown. But over time, just batch after batch, cup after cup, you sort of find that place that resonates and makes the coffee amazing.
And
So yeah, that was like up to like 2000. Now from 2000 to today, no, I sort of have separated myself from just like running a retail and roasting business to a new, very boutique, niche roasting business, and I do consulting, also some contract work with the company that owns this machine. I've got it turned off right now because it's a little bit loud, but it's a fresh bean to cup grind and brew automated machine. It's amazing. So I do work with them and just a few other things. It's great.
and you're a writer. You are a well. You do have a blog, right? You
I do
blog
have
for a
a
living.
blog. Yeah,
You
but it's yeah.
an up and coming podcaster, I
Yep.
believe.
Yep. The Coffee
Uh,
Explorer podcast.
Coffee Explorer podcast. You're a licensed Q grader.
Yep. Yep.
You've have you were you judging in the best of the Panama? Best of Panama?
I didn't do it this year, but I've done it a few times. Yep. And then a Cup of Excellence, and the most recent thing I judged was the U.S. Coffee Champs in Orange County this year, which is really the last SCA competition of the year. Accidentally.
So,
There we go.
well, we try to keep we try to keep our podcast here and our show pretty family friendly, but you're kind of a coffee badass is what it breaks down to. You are. It is really cool talking to you when we first got into the conversation because I consider myself a really. I mean, I've only been in specialty coffee for barely a year, if that really. I think I bought my first fresh roasted bag in August of 2019.
Wow.
And so I'm a newbie. But then compared to everybody I know, everybody thinks that Chris is just a coffee expert. And it's just amazing everything that is out there. And you've got 20 plus years of experience
Yeah, I
doing
win.
it.
I win.
You do. And it's so cool to
Well,
be able to talk to you. So thanks for coming on the show. First
my
off, I don't
pleasure.
think I said that yet, but
No, thanks for having me, for sure.
definitely. I Where do you want? So we'll talk about. So I got a lot of roasters that watch the show. Stephanie's watching from Northern Michigan. She's Coffee by Steph on my website. She's got a cafe in there. So what advice? What was one of the first lessons that you learned when you started doing roasting and a cafe at the same time?
Yeah. Um,
I know I totally
so
went off track of my questions that I sent you, so I apologize.
okay, that's okay. You gave a big like disclaimer. So what I learned when I opened a cafe, got my roaster in there going a year later, um, that you really kind of have to, especially if you're really small and maybe one or two or three employees, you really got to separate the times that you're roasting versus what the busy times are in the cafe. There's like this theater aspect that I was all about. But our would-be next senator, tugs me on the sleeve because he's like, Jen, like this isn't adding anything anymore because his suit smells like smoke for the whole coffee smoke for the whole day. So just really either understanding when the cycle of roasting and how it does affect the customer experience. I mean, seeing the thing in the corner is almost good enough. That and then it was really, I actually shut my store on Monday so that I could do production at a certain point because we started wholesaling and, did it make sense to have another facility yet? So there were some real, growing pains that I'm sure everybody would love to have. I mean, I was really blessed at several points to be able to just keep pushing coffee out the door. But, yeah, just engaging customers as much as you can and just continuing to taste the coffee and creating the systems for the roaster inside the store. Who does a good job with that is a place in San Francisco, Sightglass. Just got this gorgeous cafe and 2 levels, but they very much separated the worker bees, like packaging coffee and the roaster, and then all the customers as well.
How did they go about doing that?
Actually, the whole exterior of the store is lined with production. The roaster's up by the front window, the beans, there's even a giant afterburner in there. And then along one side, you can see they're like building boxes, paper clipping, like close pinning orders to the tops of the boxes. And then like upstairs on the other side is like a cupping lab. And so they're able to they're wide open, but they've created the sense of like presence, like this is busy production over here, and customers can see it and be kind of a part of it, but not in it.
In it, right? Because some people might not want to be in a production line while they're enjoying a quiet cup of coffee.
Yeah.
So the ambiance is very important when it comes to that, and that's such a, I wonder how they're handling COVID and having to deal with that environment in a production facility like that, and because everybody's been affected.
Yeah.
By that side of the house.
Yeah, and that's what I think most roasters are. I think you could choose to pass, gloves and or just so much hand sanitizer, and of course the mask and then daily temperature checks. Everybody's doing that check before people come in for the production. And I imagine anything, but.
So currently, what all do you have going on? I'm saying just. I know you've got all the stuff that you listed, but coffee production wise, do you have a cafe right now, or
no.
You're just
Yeah.
roasting and everything else?
Yeah, I roast, and I'll say it for you. Ciel Coffee. I roast the Ciel brand of coffee, a new e-commerce driven brand that I'm launched in, collaborating with Roasters Marketplace on that. And then, like I said, I work with Concordia on their bean to cup machine equipment, which I love. And I do some writing for Coffee Talk magazine, among some other things. And then, my newest passion project is this Coffee Explorer podcast that I wanted to do in 2017, and again got my notebook and took my notes and really just sort of ripped off the band-aid a few weeks ago, and it's live now, and I think I see that turning into a fun sort of a course. I see a tasting method course in my future.
That sounds cool.
That's going to be really fun for people because everybody says I don't know how to taste coffee, or it's like wine or anything else, but I think you can go through the steps and be confident tasting it and enjoy it more. And when it's bad, say it's bad.
How long have you been a Q grader?
I'm going to say since 12 or 13, so 7 years. I've renewed twice. So yeah, about 7 years.
How much of that process I'm getting a little feedback here. Hang on a second. How much of that process does, how much of going through the Q grader training, how much did that help you in your roasting?
Mhm. It helped a lot because it allowed me to really dial into the defects even more so. I think my real skill set is with sourcing coffees and finding great coffees and understanding how they'll translate with at the right roast and then making that happen. But um, with the Q, and especially even after 20 years of tasting coffees, with the Q kind of like under my belt, it's like this reminder and this responsibility I have to farmers and producers that when I score their coffee, I have to it's their livelihood. My score can very much affect if they're using it for selling purposes. You know what their success is, but it also gives them the feedback to make it better. And so evaluating coffee from that perspective, even my own coffees, has definitely made me a better sorcerer, if you will.
I like that. Coffee sorcerer. Sorcerer or sorcerer. That, I like that. That's cool.
Anyway,
You need to hashtag that and make it your own.
be a
If it's
quiet hashtag.
if it's not already taken, that's
Yeah.
the difficult part. Uh,
Um,
what?
and
Go ahead.
I'll just add, studying for that test. Sorry, studying for that test really forces your mind to hone in on the distinctions, like the in-country distinctions in coffees. Um, and so it just studying for it is probably better for you than actually having the taking the test.
And Roman from Joe Presso says, as a gemologist grading gems, he can relate,
Hmm.
and that is definitely another one of those sensory skills
Mhm.
when it comes down to it. I've always so once I was introduced to specialty coffee and started getting into this world, because that's I mean it's an entire world that most people don't even know exists. That's one of the paths I looked at. I was like, okay, so what steps do I need to take to become a Q grader? Because I think on the roaster marketplace side of the house, that would give me a little bit more ability and a little bit more training and some more tools in my toolbox to be able to like, okay, what's wrong with this coffee? Why do I have three customers that say XYZ coffee isn't isn't the quality that they should be getting? Okay, so what do I
Mhm.
need to do? Let me sample it on my own. Is it is it bad coffee? Is it somebody who, not saying that a lot of people do this, but is it somebody who's trying to pass off not high quality coffee as high quality coffee? Not that anybody out there would ever do that or not. uh, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean,
There's a lot of
yeah. And I think the biggest thing is that you're dealing with a roast, and so grading past the roast and the Q levels that roast playing field. Um, the grading past the roast. I mean, so often I would say I could diverge, chase the squirrel. Is that the biggest thing I see in roasting is that people increase the heat on the green coffee too quickly, and you can't see it. You can taste the seared exterior. Um, and that I mean, you could be dealing with that, for example, even though the coffee behind that roast might be totally fine quality, and they've chosen to roast it just
just
their way.
right. Maybe they were going. Maybe the batch got it too hot too quick. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's my. I've never roasted coffee. Somebody said, "Did you?" It was. I got a little envelope today from you. Is that the green whoosh whoosh that you sent me?
No, I'm going to send you that too. Um, that's just some Kenya. It's roasted
Okay.
Kenya.
Well, thank you.
Sure,
Uh,
sample program.
I saw it. I was like, I might be roasting some coffee in an iron skillet.
Yeah.
Uh, I've
Right.
tried up until this point to stay away from doing that because I know
Okay.
that rabbit hole is where it's going to take me. So
Just
don't
talk
send
to your
me.
wife about it first, please.
I'll do it when she's at work. We'll smoke at the house when nobody's home. So about your current venture into coffee. Tell
Uh,
me, tell me about your
yeah,
boutique coffee that
yeah.
you've got.
So Ciel is comprised of 9 coffees. There's no particularly magic number, not too many, not too few, but from farmers. I start with the quality of the coffee. Complexity of flavor is like my benchmark, meaning you, your wife, your 3-year-old daughter can pick up that cup of coffee and at least get 2 or 3 flavor notes out of it. Anybody who just kind of like, I definitely get chocolate, and I get a little bit of that orange that she's talking about. So I my benchmark is at least 4 or 5 characteristics, and I do distill it into 3 probably prominent notes. So complexity of flavor, sweetness, inherent sweetness in the coffee, sweetness developed from the roast is also extremely important. And then the provenance of the coffee. I'm working with producers who just have a real, of course, passion, but art. They know what they're doing when they pick the coffees, how they dry them. I have a real tendency to natural coffees. I know are dangerous, but I just love naturals, and I'm not afraid of them.
Why do you say they're dangerous? So that piques my interest.
Yeah.
Squirrel right there.
um,
So why do you say naturals are dangerous?
because it is so easy for that one funky bean to just set off the whole batch or the cup. And so, it's just a lot of sorting on the farmer's part to make sure that over fermented bean either doesn't happen or gets picked out before it gets roasted in your cup. And a lot of people aren't willing to take that chance that it has happened, because you do have to pay a premium for that additional handling. So our coffees do have some elevated prices. Not that they're more. That's one of the reasons why they are handled a lot more. But the average price is $1.71 a cup, for example. Um, but so anyway, the producers really know what they're doing. They're artists in the way that they dry the coffee and process the coffee. They're business people as well. And I think there's this semi impression that a lot of times the farmers, um, aren't. In many cases, they're sort of subject to just getting their coffee off their land and into a mill and hoping to get paid for it. But there's just like the wine industry, a lot of these farmers have been able to create a brand for their green coffee, and leverage that and funnel that back into just quality, great quality coffees. And um, so yeah, that's sort of my thing. It's the flavor of the coffee, the way I roast it, and where it comes from.
So do you source most of your coffee directly from farmer?
I would say, yeah, yes, directly or like really close. Like the Kenya coffee, Kenya actually, it's very difficult to buy direct from the farmer. The Kenya government, you have to buy everything through an auction,
Right.
basically. And so, actually, when I went there to try to buy direct, I got my hand slapped by the exporter when they found out I was trying to do that. Didn't hurt too bad, but so anyway, in the case of Kenya, I'm working with this woman. Her name is Kavi Bailey. She has a little cafe in the San Francisco area called Grand Parade. But she's actually this Wall Street guru, an economics specialist who was born in Kenya but was raised in the U.S. and had these like connections. She realized she had the connections to go get these coffees out of Kenya directly and pay the farmers a lot more. But the flip side of that is she went to mills and farmers who really had a game plan, were vertically integrated, had some certifications like rainforest. So in that case, I am buying through a person who's bringing it in.
Okay. Yeah, no, that is just, there's very few instances where you can get coffee directly from the farmer. There's just, it's, everybody's too far removed. There's got to be a, that farmer who's only, growing 15 acres or 40 acres of coffee isn't going to have the means to process it and get it to get it on a boat, get it through
Yeah.
customs to
Right.
get it to the States. It's just there's too many logistics in that when
Yeah.
he's trying to produce good coffee,
Yeah.
and so being able to work those relationships is very important. And I commend you for going to Kenya and trying to buy coffee.
Um,
How recent was that?
that was in, I want to say 15. Um, but, I keep the relationships alive with some of the people I met back then. Because things can change and just depending on volume, it's just always good to like try to get it. But I don't need like 3 boxes or 3 containers, I mean, whatever, 320 something thousand pounds of coffee ever. So, again, it's not going to, never. I don't want to roast that much coffee, but for example, with this guy Diego Guardia owns Hacienda Sonora in Costa Rica, and he had 3 boxes, and so 3 cardboard boxes, not 3 containers, of this SL28 variety that I have on our website, that you'll have, and it is. So that would be 90, what's 90 times 3, 270 pounds of that coffee I was able to get. I was going to fly it in, but then I was going to be paying like UPS more
Right.
than paying him. So I was able, I was like, let's just wait till it can come on a boat and do it that way. So, I mean, we're lucky the world's so small and we can fly things around if we need to, but I'd rather just give the money to the producers, of course.
Right. Right. So that brings up. So I've got one question here from one of our viewers here, Roman. He says, "Where can I buy?" I'm going to pull it up on screen, and I'm going to answer it a little bit, and I'll have you answer as well. He says, "Where can I buy coffee that is graded?
Yeah.
Does or will Roasters Market offer a section for graded ranked coffee?" Um, I'll hit that, and then I'll turn it over to you. Uh, so some of my coffee, if you go on the on Roasters Marketplace, you can actually filter by score if you search for it, Q grade or the specialty coffee grade on the coffees that I have that information for. And some people, they're like, okay, it's 84 or it's 86 or it's like some of the Chica Bean because they are a producer and they have an in-house Q grader or they have a Q grader come in to grade their coffees. They're saying, okay, all of these are at least an 84.5 or an 86. Some of Evansville coffee, his stuff, he tells me what that score is because he's like, hey, I'm only selling it by, like you are, 8-ounce bags or 6-ounce bags, and I want $22 for it. So it's a 90 or whatever. And so I'll turn that question over to you, Jen.
So I think it is interesting and it's, I guess, work in progress. It is kind of hard for the farmers to actually pay the fees and have their coffee Q graded. I think it might have been a little over $100 a coffee. But the timing, let's just say they've got a lot they want to get graded. They got to send it to CQI, Coffee Quality Institute. CQI sends it out to all the Q graders, and 3 of us have to grade it. And then, unlike in the wine industry, the coffee industry hasn't created a system for close, but for valuing that score, for like saying, I'm going to buy that because a Q grader gave it an 87 or whatever. So to answer Roman's first question, it's really difficult to just go buy some graded coffee. But I think on the CQI website, as I recall, there may be a list of some coffees that have been graded, and if you want a bag or two, you might can buy them there. And then, to your point, we can continue to educate the industry, the consumer, walking past the virtual shelf now, that this coffee has a score and this is what it means, and these people liked it. Then I think that can be, something of value and not become something that's fluff.
Right, right. And there's a lot of things I think that would carry over more from other industries or other, like wine or whiskey or especially whiskey. And I haven't seen Donnie in the comments yet. I'm surprised he's not in the room. He must be busy tonight. But like if I know that there's only 2 of these barrels of bourbon, there's only 110 gallons of this bourbon that's produced a year. then that makes sense for it to be $200 a bottle, or whatever.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's the same with coffee to the extent where you're like, there's only 40,000 pounds of this coffee. There's only 1,000 pounds of this coffee. There's only 200 pounds of this coffee in this country at this point in time, and that is why it's $28 for an 8 ounce bag. If we can quantify it by saying it's a limited quantity of a very high quality product, then I think that would translate more to the consumer. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. And that's one of the unique things about the CL brand as well, is it is access. No other coffee brand that I'm aware of provides access to only these top level coffees. A lot of them have a few strata, that they sell to different. We don't wholesale, so we're only selling just this level to the people who can. They have a grinder and they are enthusiasts and they are seeking out these types of flavors. Their friends call them a coffee snob.
Right, right. Coffee nerd, coffee snob. It's
I'm not
snob
snob,
is
but I am an expert. So
yeah, snob is such a harsh word. I like the coffee nerd. I'll
Jamie.
nerd out on. We've kind of, over the years, back in the 70s and 80s, I guess nerd was a really looked down upon insult. But now people have kind of owned it on being proud about being nerdy on a few things. So I'm pretty glad I picked up on being a coffee nerd in my life. Ruben says, or Roman says, it's a big opportunity for places that can say, hey, this is certified. I mean, it's a big marketing tool to people who know what they're looking at.
Yeah, that's what I noticed about the Golden Bean Awards. I mean, if anything, they gave everybody who got some level of award. I don't know if you followed these at all. It's an Australian-based competition that came to the U.S. a few years ago. Um, Very interesting, but they have been very generous with like from the stickers to the graphics that you can put all over your website. It just I think over time it builds like, oh, that's a Golden Bean Award winner. So that they're doing a good job of that. And then you do have Ken David's coffee review, sort of the benchmark for coffee scoring. And then I think a few others have come along, and I score my coffees. I don't always get like the Q grade score. Is different from the way this tastes roasted, the way I want it roasted score.
Right. Right. So tell me. So that's one of the things I really want to talk about because uh, the whoosh whoosh, and let me tell you my background on it a little bit. So I was Facebook group, the awesome Facebook groups that are out there for coffee, and somebody posted a picture, and they had purchased some whoosh whoosh from a roaster, and he's like, "This is the worst coffee I've ever." He hadn't even brewed it yet, I think, and because it was just a picture of the beans, and he's like, "This is, I paid so much money for it, and this is horrible." And I was like, "Look, dude, that's an Ethiopian natural. It's like all the beans are different sizes. It's like it's because there's no telling what different plants and varieties are actually in that. So tell me a little bit about whoosh whoosh.
So, man, I wish I'd sent it to you because it is ugly. It's gnarly. I mean, as the green bean, God, I wish I could run over to production and get some. There's so many different colors from the regular green. With the natural, you're going to have a couple of Quakers thrown in, and then just some really dark things. It just smells so good as the green coffee. It's like, I mean, it is very boozy even as a green coffee. It's like a spice drum. This is wild, wild, wild flavor. So anyway, yeah. So it is sorted from these, over 3,000 heirloom varieties in Ethiopia. The whoosh whoosh has been long fermented, which again is slightly terrifying because things can go quite wrong when when you basically rot the coffee, and just take it to that point of almost mold. Stop it, clean it, dry it, and get it in a bag and get it over here. Um, so again, like that, that's a distinction. It's not the distinction. Um, so and it's difficult to roast because all the different bean sizes as well. You got to be really careful because some of them, if you're not careful, you can get a little bit of darkness on the tiny ones um, while
And
you're
it,
not.
but it gives such a, sorry, it's such an amazing, like, usually I can sit down and I'll brew coffee a couple different ways before I really say, okay, this is what I'm getting out of it for sure. There's like the Kenyan was like that you sent me was definitely with like dried apricot. Every cup I could pick it up.
Yeah,
Every cup it was there. Different brew methods, something else would come out, but the dried apricot was a constant flavor note that I could pick up. And I've had the whoosh whoosh twice now, and I just can't. I mean, it's just there's so much going on
never
that
get.
I'm like, there's, and I'm trying to remember the beer I had that I'm going to relate it to, and it's definitely more of a oh, lambic. I don't know if you're familiar with lambics, the naturally fermented fruit beers like a cherry lambic, but they're so fruity. And I'm going to have to drink more of it, and I've got plenty of it to do it before I start saying for sure what notes are in it. But it's such an amazing. It's the most. It's the most floral coffee I've ever had, and it's definitely the most complex. And I've had some really good coffee, but it's knocking my socks off. So I barely wear. I work from home, so I don't wear socks anyway. So it's but so tell me, that's one thing that I want to squirrel moment here. When you're approaching these really, really rare and really expensive coffees, or they're expensive for you to get a hold of as a roaster, what is your technique? If you'll let me know, and if you'll share it with everybody listening, uh, what is your technique on bringing out the notes that you find?
Mhm, mhm.
How do you go about roasting out your profile?
So um, really careful at the turn. I'll just take you through a roast. Um, I'm, uh, I'm very generous with my turn time. Um, you know, it could be over 2 minutes, usually two-ish, 2 to 2:15. But I know there's just so many roasters out there that are like turning in a minute, and I just don't. That's just not what I do. So I'm very careful there, and I'm very careful with my heat build again because of that whole exterior scorching. I'm just petrified of it. I just hate that taste, and so um, I'm careful in my heat build, uh, in developing the body, not losing the acidity. My first, when I get to the first pop, and all these coffees again, I think these are naturals. They have a lot of outliers. That's what I call them. Those first pops that happen a minute before anything else starts popping. Um, but when I get to that pop, um, I'm just again starting. I'm starting to decrease my heat before I get to that the first pop, and then just really careful in those final moments. I don't necessarily do a dark roast. I do have some dark roast, but I don't love the way a lot of coffee tastes when it's dark roast. Plus, these coffees are just so bright and lovely and floral and crazy. To roast them dark would be an absolute shame. Um, and so it's just that moment when you can see just a tiny bit of smoke coming off in your dryer. Of course, I'm smelling it probably from I smell it before, but mostly like 7, 8 minutes into the roast up through the end. Um, I have my recipe for each coffee,
Hmm.
but as we all know, it just changes. Just changes. So you have to be. I mean, I'm just very careful about those final moments, and a lot of it, the color too. I've got like my spotlight shining on the coffees, and that I'm looking at your background. Just that the second the coffee smooths out, in many cases, not that background. Sorry.
Oh yeah.
We got like screen, the bean screen. Um, just the second that coffee smooths out is when a lot of it is ready.
So Donnie's showed up in my comments. He's going to say, I'm going to pull his question up here. What is your most unique coffee currently on your menu? And that's coming from a coffee nerd and fellow roaster.
Okay. That's Donnie, the nerd,
Yeah.
coffee nerd, not book nerd. So I would say that right here. So the most where I found that is the craziest coffee I have right now is from a Panama farm called 90 Plus, and it's owned by sort of again rock star producer Joseph Brodsky, who started this brand 90 Plus. Um, and this particular coffee is called Dreama Zede, which is actually placed in Ethiopia. He used to have some Ethiopia farms, and he pulled out for whatever reason. Is really focused on his Panama farms. And Dreama Zede is a place in Ethiopia that he's named this particular coffee after. And what they have done with it is they have fermented it in a, I'm guessing, they won't tell you. They're very secretive about the process. But like a giant, like 50-gallon drum. They put the coffee cherries in this drum and hammered it shut and just left it in the Panama weather for I'm not sure how long, but it is funky. It is wild. It's just it takes the whoosh whoosh times 10,
Oh
but
wow.
it really pulls out in the cup. He is the one. I don't know if you heard last year, he sold a few kilograms of coffee to a guy in Japan for like $10,000 a kilogram. Um, but anyway, he's very experimental with the processing and very careful and just again, it's art. If you're looking at that painting on the wall, some people like it and some people don't. It's intense. Like it's definitely like it's an occasion coffee for many because it is just so fruity. There's some big bergamot. Again, just lots of um, rum flavors, but like just it smells at my house. Like it's amazing.
When you brew it.
Yeah. I grind it and brew it. Like even the coffee grounds just smell so good after they're used. The spent grounds, it's like potpourri.
So for a small roaster,
Yeah.
such as Donnie and Mike from Project Buna, who are watching right now, what would you recommend them to do when they want to start experimenting with some of these really, really crazy, fruity, expensive coffees? Because that's what holds a lot of people back is, maybe they can only get a 60-kilogram bag of it and it's expensive. And so that's holding them back. Do you know of any place you can, two-part question.
Yeah.
What's your first recommendation for a roaster when they start to journey into the more expensive coffees?
So, I think a lot of these producers that are making these exotic and expensive coffees have tuned into the fact that they've got to reduce the batch size. Like this guy will sell, I feel like it's even under 30 pounds, which is still a small investment. But again, it's like, this is what we do. So this is one of the places we spend our money. He does like that. Hacienda Sonora has some smaller batches. The whole auction process now, Cup of Excellence auction, they are making smaller and smaller batches that maybe you don't get them from the auction, but a lot of the people that participate are happy. They've tied up so much cash in the auction price, they're often happy to sell some coffee off.
Right.
I hear you though. It's not like these guys want to call up Intelligentsia and say, "Hey, I saw that you bought this auction lot. Can we skim off 10 pounds, please?" Um, so finding access to those coffees. Let's see, green coffee. Theta Rich has some decent, very good green, special green. I feel like the guy that runs Willoughby's Coffee, but he has a green store and he's buying auction lots as well. So um, I'll come up with a list as I keep thinking about it and just see if we
Yeah,
can do a little
yeah,
resource guide.
shoot it over to me, and I'll put it in the comments because we'll put all this stuff in the comments on the
Yeah. But
podcast, and people can go back and look at the
yeah,
notes.
it's work. Like we're coffee hunters. Like I didn't just happen across 90 plus website and say, oh, this must be really great. Like no, it's after 20 years of going to these competitions and meeting farmers and tasting their stuff and relationships. And so yeah, it's it's digging for gold, mining for gold for sure.
So for a new roaster, which a lot of my roasters are new
Yeah,
to this game,
yeah,
would you and I guess COVID-19 is going to affect some of this, but how would you recommend a new roaster get into uh, get into that scene? I guess you would say. You know, how would go to coffee? Import tasting parties when they come back, or coffee cuppings, I guess.
how would they find the
Well,
producers
well,
of
how
coffee?
would you recommend them start to go to coffee cuppings with the importers? Because a bunch of my roasters, they might not be anywhere near an importer that is doing.
Yeah,
They have tasting, or they used to have cuppings all the time here in
yeah,
Houston, but we've got a huge coffee warehouse.
mhm,
A lot of stuff comes to the port,
yeah.
so they're always doing that. What would you recommend a roaster do in the
Yeah.
normal world?
I think yeah, like I mean your marketplace offers the ability to taste varieties that you don't have much exposure to. I mean, just if you find something you like, or you know if you taste the 90 plus, then you're like, I want to call this guy up myself. Like I just, I just think you have to be more resourceful. And that's a good question. Thinking about how roasters find new coffees. I mean, I think a lot of people are very generous with samples um, as well, especially importers. But um, yeah, I'm going to think about that.
Build a relationship with your local importers so you can get some samples. And I'm sure most of them do. I know Emily Smith. She's been on the show a couple times. Works for Novus or Mercon Specialty
Yeah.
now. You know, uh, Donnie said he ordered the 90 plus. Cheers.
Oh,
There you
okay.
go. There you go. See,
Great.
told you it was be a
Cheers.
good
Thank
time.
you,
You're
Donnie.
selling coffee.
You'll be pleased. I'll send a little taster to you too, so you and Donnie can like mind
And,
melt over
and
it.
we do. We actually there's been plenty of times. Donnie's active duty Navy, but he's been working from home, and so we'll message each other when we're drinking different things and talk about coffee. So it's a
Yeah.
lot of fun.
Yeah.
Speaking of which,
Yeah.
how do you go about coming up with a coffee that you're exploring, right? You're hunting for the next coffee that you're going to to do. I don't know what just happened, but everybody should be okay. Sorry about
Your wife ran out of wine.
that. Yeah, yeah, that's possibly happened. Um, and I lost track of what I was saying.
Yeah.
How do you go about hunting a coffee that you've never, maybe you don't have a relationship with the farmer? How do you go about sourcing like that?
Yeah. I just thought of a great place you guys might or may not be using is the Cropster Marketplace. That is how I found because you can sort by score on their green market, um, and that is how I came across the Novus and actually the Grand Parade. I saw what they had, but I called them and I said, "Look, I want something that's like even better. I see what you have here. I'm happy to taste it, but keep in mind, I want this to be like over a 90 by the time I get done with it." And so yeah, it's like just going those extra few steps when you see something. Like right now, I am pining for some really great Sumatra, just like old school, dirty, earthy, like full on, like just punch you in the face with not roasted dark Sumatra. And it's been hard to find. And so, people, if you have any let me know. But yeah, like that's something that I really have got to just buckle down on. And it's hard just because of that country to have like these rock star Sumatran coffees. I just happen to like the taste of it. So I mean, yeah, so it's some research, um, definitely. But that I'm glad I thought that Cropster is a great resource.
It's
I
pretty
forgot what it's
cool.
called.
I've looked at it a couple times when I was first getting into this
Yeah,
uh, into this
no Roman,
yeah
right there.
getting into it. I looked at Cropster a little bit, but that's it's all about the green side of the house
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
when it comes down to it. Um, what would you say as a small batch roaster transit or from a, a, a bigger production roaster to now what you're doing? What are some of the challenges that you found shifting into these boutique coffees?
Um, yeah, you definitely don't want to make any mistakes on the roast for sure. But um, yeah, I mean, roasting a small batch. I mean, how small within a reason, from 5 pounds up to 40 pounds, really takes the same amount of time for the roast to develop. The time between roasts, prepping the batches. I sort of approach the whole thing very systematically. So that is translated quite easily. Storage is easier, and from being big and scaling down, fewer people to work with. Um, but yeah, I mean, I love it. I love the control, and you just get so intimate with the coffees. Um, you just know them so well after a few batches and a few hundred cups, for sure.
What about on the actual like the commercial or the retail side? What are the challenges that you see with selling these boutique coffees?
Challenges of selling boutique coffee.
Like your market, like what do you run into your marketing challenge
Yeah,
or your website challenge or your social media? What challenges do you see on a daily basis?
yeah. But I think the challenge is not specific to necessarily me or my coffee, but yeah, it's just finding that audience. I love to use the analogy that I've built this amazing new cafe on a super busy street, and everything's ready inside, and the coffee's brewing, and the lights on. But it's again that analogy of just getting those cars whizzing by to have many choices to come in. So yeah, that doesn't change. And in terms of educating related to an elevated coffee, like why you might want to experience a coffee that's much more complex than maybe your super solid breakfast Colombian blend. You just again, people have to taste it. Just sometimes a little taste goes a long way. And then once you're in front of them, the education, why the coffees taste the way they do. I think understanding too, like having access to those farmers and what they're doing in a way that you just don't get when you're buying. Even I'm just trying to think. Whole Foods can have a really nice offering. It's great to get in there. Congratulations to everybody that has and be in there. But because of the price point, you
Right.
can't really get a ton of nuance and crazy flavor notes going on. And if that's what you seek out, and if you're the guy buying the lambic wine, beers or the crazy IPAs, then you're going to enjoy a cup of coffee that's even more interesting.
And I like and we haven't talked about this, but I like your approach by doing the smaller size bags. And I would almost encourage you to do even a smaller size. We'll talk about this a little bit, but what I see on the marketplace side of one of the trends is we'll have a customer get on and they'll buy two or three $15 to $17 range bags, and then they'll go out there and they'll buy something more expensive. You know, they'll buy their everyday coffee and then they'll buy their Saturday coffee.
Yeah, so the
You
brunch
know, their brunch coffee, their fun coffee. And so I think that's one of the things that I definitely can encourage on the marketing side of the house to some extent when it comes to orders like that. But we had an order come in, excuse me, sorry. We had an order come in on Monday. And I know specifically, hold on, I'm going,
Look at this 8.4 ounce bag. It's 238 grams, which is you didn't ask, but I'll tell you, my recipe is 17 grams per cup, which is a perfect recipe per 8 ounce cup, and so 238 grams is 2 cups a day for a week. So that's sort of how I came up with this perfect size, super fresh, ordered every week, vacuum sealed, the zipper. So anyway,
I
all
love
this.
your, I love your packaging,
Thanks.
and I still owe you some pictures. So I don't know, but
Yeah.
it's not COVID-19. I'm fine. I just got something caught in my throat here, which is not good to do on a podcast when you're
Yeah, so
trying to talk.
when you eat the coffee beans every once in a while, and then yeah,
Uh,
really good.
when so, how many cups of coffee do you get out of that bag? You said it,
14.
14. Okay.
It was not shipping. Yeah.
When when I first started in this, when I first started drinking really good coffee, I was always looking at, I don't have a cup here, and now I have an espresso machine that I make my little tiny 4 to 6 ounce servings uh, with, but I was like, why are they brewing 17 grams? Why are they brewing 20 grams? Why are they, why is this recipe for 15 grams in an AeroPress? What are you going to get out of that? And as the more coffees I have on hand and the more coffee I try, I now understand that because instead of me making an 18-ounce cup of coffee, I'll make 3 coffees through the day, and I'll be able to try 3 different coffees, or I'll be able to take the same coffee and brew it as an espresso. I will uh, brew it in a V60, and I'll do a pour over or I'll do a Chemex, and now I am only doing a 20-gram shot, or 16 grams in the espresso. I am doing those smaller doses, and I think maybe that's just my coffee journey and where I'm going with it. But it's definitely fun to be able to do, and I might have a few more coffees on hand than most people.
Yeah, yeah. Access. Talking about access.
I
Well,
do.
there is science that says like the physiological response to a well brewed, high quality cup of coffee is is as much as, if not more, satiating physiologically than your giant tumbler of like poorly brewed, maybe convenience store coffee, for example.
Because you're getting more out of it. You're getting there's an emotional response as well as a
Caffeine, the
physical.
flavor,
Yeah.
or the antioxidants, polyphenols.
We've got a good question right here, and we'll finish this off. This will be our last question from the audience, and it's Everything Coffee by Thomas says, just got here. What kind of roaster care do are you using?
Roaster care, roaster maintenance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my protocols include daily vacuuming the chaff out of I have a Gießen W6, so it's really designed to clean the chaff out easily. And every day I have to there's a little lever on top of the cooling bin. I drop in a few drops of this oil there, and then I'm using my brush to keep everything just shiny and pretty. And then on the fairly regular basis, not daily, as the instruction manual says, with a Gießen, you can lift off the cooling bin and like really get in there with your shop vac and like get out every single bit of chaff. Um, and then, the geese actually comes with, it's easy to change out the sight glass, for example, if it got broken or really dirty. Um, and then, of course, on a as needed, so probably every 6 months at my current volumes, just go in and get my motors cleaned and my exhaust, of course. I keep a close eye on exhaust.
And
That
what's your setup? Do you have a roasting facility there at? Do you have a separate facility for your
Yeah,
roastery?
yeah, yeah. So again, the W6, um, I'm just hand loading it. It's like I could reach it right here. It'll do 12 pounds. I can do 3 pounds on it, but I'd rather do 6 to 11 or 12 pounds on it, and then I have the vacuum sealer, like I said, and um, just again, it's pretty manual, which is fine with me.
Awesome. Jen, thank you so much. I can hear my children are rebelling against their mother right now, and it's we're an hour into it. I really appreciate you coming on the show tonight,
My pleasure. My
and
party.
it's a lot of fun talking to you, and I look forward to making an appearance over on your podcast. So
Yes.
once again, for all our
Table.
listeners, tell us where we can find you.
So you can email me, Jen at cl.world. JennaCL.world is my URL. And on social media, I'm cl.coffee.world. Our coffees will be available imminently on Roasters Marketplace. And and again, you can just contact me directly on Facebook. We have just launched like the Coffee Explorer page. And then on all your podcasts, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, the Coffee Explorer is available there. So yeah, stay tuned for our episode. We're going to break down the coffee label. I'm really excited about um, doing that with everybody,
It's
with
it's
you,
going
not everybody.
it's going to be a lot of fun, and but before we do that, I'm going to have some data points for you on stuff I see from having traffic with the roasters and how that looks like. You know, what's your bag label kind of equates to in some SEO and how that looks for the consumer point of view and
Yeah,
the e-commerce point of view. So I'm really looking forward to that show and talking to you more, Jen, and having you on our sponsor, Roasters Marketplace, really soon.
great.
All right, don't go anywhere. I'm going to
Okay.
just drop you off and close out the show. Thanks
All
for
right, buddy.
coming by.
Bye, guys.
All right, thanks for tuning in. Sorry I got choked up there during the show. I don't know what happened. I almost died. It was bad. But thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Let us know how you like the show in the comments. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you like and share the video on Facebook. And make sure you give us a like on Apple and Spotify and all those other places. And we're going to roll out tonight, as usual, with a little Dom Coors. And congratulations to Dom on his brand new baby boy who's a couple weeks old and looking good from social media at least. So have a great night, y'all. We'll see you soon. Cheers.